What's up, chat? It's Tier List Thursday. We're gonna break the mold a little bit. 2 weeks in a row, I was talking about video games, so let's talk about something slightly different. Let's talk about video games that take place in your brain. Today we're gonna be ranking the classes for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. Now this is basically just gonna be my enjoyment of the classes. If I'm ranking something, unless I otherwise state it, it's purely based off of enjoyment. These aren't trying to be objective. But for the criteria, like I said, it's mostly just enjoyment. How much fun do I have playing these classes? But also, and that can entail, does this class have interesting and fun abilities for combat encounters? But also, is it helpful outside of combat? Do they have skills, spells, whatever, that are useful in social interactions, exploration, dungeon crawling, stuff like that? As well as maybe potential avenues for role-playing added by the class. And maybe their subclasses. Subclasses aren't going to be focused on too much. I want this to be a quick one. Alright, the other two were damn near an hour and 90 minutes. We're going to try to make this one nice, short, and sweet. Although knowing me, it's still probably going to be like 40 minutes. Without further ado, let's get started. We're going to start off with the Barbarian. So, Barbarian, unfortunately, I'm probably just going to put it in B tier. Now, I like Barbarians. Barbarians are fun. I have not played a ton of Barbarians. I believe I have played 2 or 3 to be exact. And the problem with Barbarians is that they're a very combat-focused class, which I like, which is fun. Barbarians allow me to do, combat-wise at least, allow me to play the game in the way that I love. And the way I like making my characters is I like having a big fuck-off weapon, and I like slamming it down on somebody and dealing a grillion damage. I love that. And I also like being a tank. I like being able to get hit. I like being able to draw fire from my parties. I like playing tanks. I like playing a mix of tank and DPS. And Barbarians, while you can't really tank in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, it's not really how it works. There's no such thing as aggro. Barbarians are really good. They're as close as you can get to being a tank. Raging, you're taking less damage, and they have the biggest hit dice, so they're going to have way more health than everyone else. But, reckless attack, great weapon master, all that stuff. You're going to do a ton of damage with Barbarians, and that is fun. Combat-wise, these guys are good. They are really good at what they do, and what they do is being a martial. However, Barbarians don't give you a ton outside of combat. It's all really just, you get better at hitting things, you're harder to kill, your strength and your constitution score get increased. It's all combat-focused abilities. And it's fun, I enjoy playing them, but it really doesn't add a ton, like role-playing wise, or for out-of-combat encounters. And so, because of that, fortunately I will put Barbarian in B. It's really good at the one thing it does, but that's all it does. And that just can't be higher than B tier. Up next, though, we got a banger. Bard goes in S tier. Now, I've only ever played one Bard in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. However, I am very confident in putting Bards in S tier. Bards are phenomenal. Right off the bat, I'm just gonna like playing Bards because they're the musician class, and I very poorly play the guitar. So, oh shit, I forgot to loop the music. Oh, no I didn't. Never mind, ignore me, chat. I'm fucking losing it. They're musicians. First of all, they're a charisma-based class, which is automatically just gonna push you towards being, the face of the party. It's gonna, push you in the direction of the social interactions. And the role-playing, which is, like 90% of the game. That's the important part. If I wanted to just, focus on combat, I would play 40k, but I'm not playing 40k. I'm playing D&D. I want to roleplay because I'm a loser. But high charisma means you're gonna be good in social interactions. Bards get like 1,000,000 skill proficiencies, so you're gonna be proficient in pretty much all of the social skills, on top of much more. You're a spellcaster. You're a full caster. Right off the bat, that's huge pluses. Spellcasters are just more fun and engaging. They can do more. They can just do more. Bards can do so much more than like a barbarian can. They're incredible. They're great. And just the nature of like the bard class, it's gonna push you into, being outgoing, being a like social butterfly, stuff like that. And from a dungeon master's perspective, that's real useful because I can always count on my bard trying to get up into some shenanigans, and introducing plot hooks becomes real fucking easy with stuff like that. But bards are great. Bardic Inspiration is an incredible, little supportive ability. That's the main thing. Bards are a phenomenal support class. I don't usually play support. I'm not that kind of person. But I can look at Bard and recognize them as, being good in combat, while also being phenomenal outside of it. And also, Bardic Inspiration, that's not just a combat thing. That's an all-the-time thing. You are constantly potentially lifting up your party members and making them, better at, making sure they can... Oh, God, excuse me. Making sure they're doing better and that they're getting those bonuses to their rolls. It's great. It's awesome. Everyone loves to have a bard on their party. Next up, we got Cleric. Cleric has a lot of the same things going for it that Bard does. However, I will put it in A tier. Oh, wow. Actually, I don't... No, it's based on enjoyment. It's based on enjoyment. I can put Cleric in A tier. Clerics are probably just maybe the best class in the game. Full caster, incredible. Divine magic, so they get healing spells, incredible. They also just get really good everything spells, especially depending on their cleric domain. Some of them get heavy armor proficiency. They're great. Just objectively speaking, clerics can kind of do everything. You want a big, tanky, heavy armor, take hits and not worry about it too much, or, things try to hit you but they can't hurt you. Clerics can do that. You want lay back, throw spells and blow everything up, they can do that. You want to lay back, and make sure the party doesn't die, you can do that. You want to charge in and hit things real hard, you can do that, but you should probably just be sticking to your spells, actually. And like I said, speaking of spells, they're full casters, and clerics get some of the best fucking spells in the game. Spiritual Guardians is incredible. I'm not gonna try to think of examples. I didn't write anything down. Like I said, I want this to be a quicker video. One thing I really, really enjoy about clerics in particular is the fact that I love mythology. I love learning about ancient and modern, like religious, belief systems. I find that stuff incredibly fascinating. Ever since I was a child, I was obsessed with Greek and Norse mythology and the gods and all that sort of stuff. And anytime I get into anytime I get a new hyperfixation, and I'm into anytime I consume a new piece of media, if there's ever even slightly fleshed out, a deity system or divinity is explored in some degree, I instantly try to I read up on that first, and that's the part that I learn the most about and find the most interesting. I love that shit. And clerics, they're the exact same. Their whole thing, their whole shtick is that they worship a god so devoutly that that god has seen fit to give them spell power. Give them spellcasting abilities. And that just gives me as the DM to explore, you know, the divinity system, the pantheon, all that stuff, the gods of whatever realm I've created. And as a player, it allows, like, you know, it gives me an excuse for the DM to tell me about all of their, you know, gods and the, you know, mythology that they've come up with. And I love that. I love that for Cleric. The only reason why I'm putting Cleric an A instead of S is just because I don't really play a ton of Clerics. And I'm gonna be real with you guys. If I'm playing a Cleric, it's probably because I was not allowed to play a class we will get to in a few minutes. If you know me, you already know. Next up, we got Druid. So unfortunately, Druid is one of 2 classes on this tier list that I have not played. I have never played a Druid. And I think that says a lot. I think it just goes to show how I feel about it. Now, I'm not going to put Druid in D tier, because D tier should be a bad tier. D tier should be, like, lame, boring classes I don't enjoy go. And I can't say that about Druid, because I've never played it. Although the fact that I haven't played it does kind of imply it maybe would go down there. I guess the main thing is just Druids don't interest me. They're not the kind of thing that I want to play. You know, they're a Druid. They're full casters, which is sick, which is definitely a plus for them. But a lot of their spells, I don't know. I've never seen... Sorry about that. I've never seen, like, a Druid in, like, one of my campaigns cast a spell, and I'm like, that's so sick. That spell is so cool and awesome. I need to play Druid, because that's such a fun and cool spell to play around with. I've never seen that. None of their subclasses really speak to me. I mean, the coolest one is probably Circle of the Moon. But that's just because, you know, that one lets you wild shape more. And wild shaping's cool. Wild shaping seems like a fun ability, because it allows, like, you know, like I said, it allows me to be pretty tanky, you know, because wild shape gives you so many hit points. It can be quite difficult to kill a proper druid. A druid who knows how to do what they're doing. But it's one of those things, you know, if I want to play a full caster, I'm probably going to play literally any of the other ones, honestly. Unfortunately, I don't have a ton to say about Druid, but I mean, I respect, shout out to him, salute. Up next, we got Fighter. Fighter's an easy S tier. Also, yeah, sure, fuck it, the tiers are going to be ordered. I love Fighters. Like I said before, Barbarian. I love playing big dudes with big weapons who hit things for big damage. I love that. It scratches an itch in my brain that never quite goes away. And I mean, they're fighters. Their whole shtick is that they are the martial class. You know, they're the most bread and bones, basic. I hit things with weapons. Now, right off the bat, you know, you might be thinking, oh, well, Peyton, you just put Barbarian in B tier because that's all Barbarians do, and you just put Fighters in S tier? Are you stupid? Is he dumb? And only a little bit. However, what separates Fighters for me from Barbarians, what puts them in S tier instead of B tier, are their subclasses. Because, you know, like I said, Barbarian, it's still very much, even with your other subclasses, you're not really getting anything outside of combat. And a lot of the other fighter subclasses are combat focused, because the class itself is combat focused. But the variety is the main thing. The variety you get from fighters is huge. It's massive. And I'm just going to be straightforward with you guys. The main thing that puts fighters so high up is Eldritch Knight. Now, I mentioned earlier, I like playing big dudes in big armor, big weapons, big damage. The only thing I like more than that is when I get to play a character who has a big old sword, who's smacking and killing motherfuckers with it, and then immediately it can also just shoot out a spell, like, you know, cast a little bit of magic. That's the dream, baby. That's the dream. That's what we're all striving towards, really. You know, being a cool guy who can swing a sword and shoot a little magic. That's the dream. And I want to say all but like 2 or 3, because I've played a lot of fighters. I want to say maybe all but like 2 of them have been Eldritch Knights. because it lets me play the thing that I want to play the most out of my fantasy games. I want to play a guy with sword and spell, blade and sorcery. I love that and I adore it. But also the other fighter subclasses are really cool. Rune Knight is very similar in that it kind of gives you borderline magical abilities. And you know, your runes give you outside of combat useful abilities. Champion sucks. Champion is someone you only take if you're like multi-classing and min-maxing. Battle Master. Oh my god, Battle Master, man. Battle Master is also what elevates a fighter a million light years above any barbarian, because it gives you the ability to do more than just swing your weapon. Because barbarians, at the end of the day, they're going to use their bonus action to rage, and then they're going to reckless attack Great Weapon Master. And, you know, their other subclasses might give them some cool things to do. You know, Berserkers are taking a bonus action attack. Totem Barbarians are impossible to kill. Storm Barbarians, you know, have a little bit of a little Storm aura that lets them do slightly more, but it's not a ton. I'm trying to think of the other subclasses. Those are the only three I can think of. The only three I can feel like are worth mentioning. Spiritual Guardians is pretty cool, actually. That one gives you a little bit of CC, area control, area denial. But anyways, I'm getting distracted. Battle Masters let you do more than just use your attack action to attack. Just hope you hit and deal damage and leave it at that. It gives you maneuvers, which lets you do additional things. Maybe you just use it to deal even more damage, which is completely valid. I don't blame you. But you can also, you know, try and trip an enemy and make them prone during your attack. Maybe you try to disarm them, knock the weapon out of their hands. You can gain the ability to parry, which is just, you know, basically a Marshall's version of shield. The shield spell, I should specify. You can, as a reaction, you know, attack somebody who made an attack against you, or maybe you can use your reaction to give your ally an additional opportunity to attack. Just Battle Masters, man, it's really one of those things where, like, unless you really want to play one of the other fighter subclasses, you pick Battle Master, just because it is so amazing. Battle Master is kind of embarrassing because it makes the idea of playing any other, like, martial, non-magic casting character kind of redundant and boring. But fighters are great. Fighters are awesome. I think they are my second most played class. I've played a lot of fighters. They're great. Up next we got Monk. Monk, unfortunately, is the other class that I have never played. And main reason why I haven't played Monk is just, once again, they don't really interest me all that much. I don't like... I want to be the big dude, you know, with his big old plate armor, with a sword. That's the fiction I find interesting. That's what I want to do. I don't want to be, you know, the dude punching guys real hard. That's cool. That's neat. Well, monks don't even really hit that hard. They just hit a bunch. I guess that's another thing. I prefer, you know, hitting something once and dealing a guerrillion damage, but monks get their damage in by hitting things a million times, but for like 3-5 damage, which, I mean, adds up. Monks can certainly, you know, whoop some ass. But I mean, that's what it is. Now, granted, monks do have their key system, and while that isn't spellcasting, it's pretty close. I mean, depending on the monastery way, or whatever it's called. Yeah, it's the way of insert subclass name. Depending on which subclass you take, you basically just get spellcasting. Which is cool, interesting, makes the class more dynamic. You know, but it's just one of those things. I don't have a ton to say. They don't interest me. I haven't played them. You know what? Actually, I should probably just... I'm just gonna move them down to this tier because, spoiler, I don't think I'm gonna put anything in D tier. I don't actively dislike any of the classes. And just wouldn't feel to put, like, Druid and Monk in the same tier, potentially, as a class that I have played and do have something to say about. But, yeah, whatever. Shut up. It's Paladin time. Actually, I'm gonna... I'm gonna actually move Bard down to A tier. Bard's like an A+. But I got 3-4 classes in mind that I realize are just... I will take over Bard any day of the year. But Paladins are numero uno. Anyone who knows me, anyone who has played Dungeons and Dragons with me, knows how I feel about Paladins. I fucking love Paladins. Take everything I said about Bard, Cleric, Fighter, Barbarian, all the things I love about those classes, Paladins do that. First of all, they're a big old fella, or a lady them. Big armor, big weapon, and they can hit things real hard. Oh boy, do I love me my Divine Smite. There's nothing in Dungeons and Dragons that I love more than rolling a natural 20, deciding to dump my highest level spell slot into that Divine Smite, and then looking my DM in the eyes as I roll 500 d8s and tell him that I just did a grillion damage to his boss monster. And he gets to just stare at me and smile and say, cool, you killed it in 3 rounds, and it didn't get to do any of the cool shit I had planned. Thank you very much. Matter of fact, I legit had a DM bar me from playing Paladin in a campaign. Now granted, this was a campaign that I joined more than halfway through, and there's already a Paladin in the party, and also, it was Curse of Strahd, and having 2 Paladins, there would have only been so much he could have done to challenge us. But let me get on to let me sing the Paladin's other praises. Now, one thing that is interesting about Paladins is that they don't necessarily have to be, like, devout, pious individuals, but they usually are. They're very heavily flavored to be holy knights, even though their power comes from an oath and not a god. And it's just the same thing as Cleric. That's something where I feel, it allows me, and vice versa, like, it allows me to engage with the DM's world and vice versa, with, like, the divine aspect of the world, what is divinity, what are the gods, what does godhood mean, what are the gods about, what's their whole MO, it just allows me to engage in that aspect of the world, and it, it's intrinsic to my character, which I love. I already mentioned Divine Smite and getting to deal a gabillion damage. I mean, every time, like, in my history of playing D&D, every time I've, like, have a cool story where it's like, yeah, then I hit this dude and I did 1,000,000 damage and he exploded. It's because I was either playing a Paladin or I was playing a class that practically has access to Divine Smite, just a different name. Let's see, what else? They are incredible, they're half-casters. So I'm getting spells that allow me to do things. Now, a lot of these spells are combat-focused, but there are, out-of-combat-focused spells that Paladins get. One of them that I absolutely love is Ceremony. Ceremony is a spell you will never use in combat. In fact, it's still niche outside of combat. But it allows for just... the things that Ceremony can do, it's one of those things where just, like... I don't know. I love that spell. I love the Ceremony spell. It's incredible. It's great. It's one of those spells where you're probably never... You can go a campaign without ever using it or needing it. But it just... It allows for role-playing. It just gives perfect role-playing opportunities. It's amazing. Let's see. They can... they can be a supportive class, lay on hands, getting to heal my allies, and that's the other thing, I said, anytime I have the opportunity, I'm playing like an Eldritch Knight, a Gish type character, which is still true, but if that's not readily available, the immediate next thing that I want to do is play like a Paladin class character. I want to play a big dude with armor and a weapon and a shield who hits things, but they can also make sure that their allies don't die. They can bring them up. They can keep them from dying. I love that, Either let me go, full tank DPS, hit things and not worry about getting hit, or let me just, go like full tank support. Hit things, not get too worried about myself getting hit, and make sure that when my allies do get hit, I can make sure that, the effects, they're not worrying for too long. I can bring them back up the top. I just love being able to do that. But yeah, no, paladins. I fucking love paladins. My most played class. You know, anytime a new campaign is starting up, the go-to joke is always, "Ooh, what's Peyton gonna play? A tiefling paladin? How did you know?" Yeah, no, I got a type, and it's the paladin class, and oh boy, I will never be ashamed of that. Unfortunately, after a series of bangers, we gotta go back down a notch. We're gonna go with the ranger. I'll put the ranger in B tier right up. Oh no, I'm not gonna put him above. Oh fuck, I don't know where to put him. I don't know. Well, let me talk about ranger first, and I'll figure it out. Rangers, they're the other half-caster class alongside paladins. And rangers are weird. Rangers are weird. So in the base version of 5th edition that released back in 2014, the ranger is ass. It is by far the weakest and most underwhelming class in the game. Wizards of the Coast quickly became aware of that and spent basically the next decade trying to fix the ranger. Like, they constantly were making unearthed arcanas, you know, floating around new ideas for how to make the ranger better, and they they started doing some crazy shit. Like, I know at like one point for an unearthed arcana, they tried making the ranger their hit dice 2d6, which just ended up with your ranger having like more health than your barbarian, which should never fucking happen. But WotC, their efforts have not been in vain. The ranger is now at a point where it can stand with the other big boys, you know. You can pick a ranger and no one's going to look at you like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you picking a ranger? Are you trying to get us killed? Ranger's an actual class now. And it can do some cool things. And I'll tell you what, ranger has some of the coolest subclasses in the entire game. Because, you know, WotC knew base class sucks, not very good. We just gotta give it some sick fucking subclasses to make up for it. And goddamn, did they make some sick subclasses. Gloomstalker is so cool. Gloomstalker is awesome. I've only ever played 2 rangers, I believe. One of them was only like level 2. You never even got to its subclass. The other one was a Gloomstalker that I played in like a little, not a one-shot, but a very short, brief mini campaign. Shout out Dare Bear. And god, yeah, no, they're fun. They're great because one thing that rangers do really well is the fact that they are good. They have outside of combat focused abilities. Like chiefly, they're good at tracking. They can track things down. You know, they're good at like exploration. I said that with a little bit of a lisp. They're good at exploration. They're you know, they can make it to where like, oh, the party won't get lost, and they can travel like at a fast rate without, you know, increasing, like without, you know, while still being able to stealth as they move. You know, and they get a lot of their spell lists, you know. Paladin's got a bunch of, you know, hit things real hard and then, like, divine-themed support abilities. And then Ranger's got, you know, stuff that basically is like, you know, like Hunter's Mark and stuff like that. And then a bunch of, like, Druid-flavored, or just straight-up Druid spells. And it once again allows them to, you know, it allows them to spellcasting. It allows them to spellcasting, makes them more dynamic, gives them more things to do than just attack. Allows them to, you know, support their allies depending on the circumstance. Gosh, what else? They're also got a D10 hit dice because, like I said, they're a half caster. So if you wanted to, you could play a ranger the exact same way you play a paladin or a fighter. There's technically nothing stopping you from playing a ranger who has like strength as their main stat and dex as their dump stat, and just, you know, goes in with like big ol' armor and hit things with a sword. In fact, that's kind of how I technically played that Gloomstalker character. But it's one of those things that you can do it, but let's be real, you should be focusing on dex. You should be like laying back with an arrow, because all the cool unique ranger spells have to do with, you know, like shooting arrows, which sucks, whatever, I don't care. But rangers, unfortunately, it just kind of boils down to, this isn't like the core fantasy, the core fiction of the character isn't something that interests me all too much, you know. Once I start to lean into that archetype, it's like I don't usually like playing ranged. If I'm laying back, it's because I'm shooting cool, awesome explosions and stuff, or I'm right in the enemy's face and I'm hitting them with a sword. I don't want to shoot arrows, you know? Give me a close ranged, you know, weapon, or give me magic, or give me both. But really, unfortunately, it just kind of boils down to I'm almost never gonna pick a ranger over a fighter, and if I want to be a ranged character, I'm just gonna pick like a wizard or a bard or a sorcerer, and I don't even play sorcerers all that much, or a cleric for that matter. It doesn't do anything for me that other classes can do. It's just the unfortunate state of it. Here's my hot take. Crit, if you've gotten this far in the video, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm putting rogue in C tier. I don't fuck with rogues. It's just not what I like to do. It's not how I like to play video games. Now, they're not video games. What the fuck am I talking about? It's just not how I like playing things in general. Now, oh shit. We gotta loop the music. Sorry about that. So unprofessional. It's not how I like playing things. I don't like being the stealthy dude who pops out of nowhere and, like, you know, puts a dagger through your neck and, you know, hides back into the shadows. It can be fun, you know, but it's more of like the occasional change of pace for me, and not my primary way of engaging in things. And there's, like, you know, just nothing the rogue does for me. Now, granted, you might be thinking, well, Peyton, you said you like hitting things once and doing a really good damage. The rogues do that. But it's also, like, yeah, but also no, because, you know, fighters get to attack, like, 20 goddamn times, and then paladins and barbarians only get their 2 attacks, but emphasis on 2 attacks. They're not completely reliant on that 1 attack going through and doing all of their damage like a rogue is, you know? Like, if you sneak and you miss your, like, sneak attack, dude, that sucks. There's nothing you can do about that. Like, that's the worst part about playing barbarian, paladin, and fighter, like, levels 1 through 4, is that, you know, if you miss your attack, your action's just over. Like, if you roll poorly, that's it. That's all you get to do. That's your action. But then level 5 and onwards, it's like, oh, I missed this 1 attack. Okay, well, let me try again. And I don't know. And maybe there's, like, I don't know what it is. I would rather miss both of my extra attacks than, you know, miss my 1 single attack. Because, you know, if you miss both, it's like, well, shit, that's just how the cookie crumbles. It didn't work out. Oh, well. But when you miss the first one, it's like, I had 1 shot and I blew it. And there's nothing I can do now. You know, if it happens twice in a row, it's like, well, shit, can't get mad at that. That's the story the dice wanted to tell. But it's like, when you only got 1, it's like, this is the only thing I can do, and it failed. And it sucks. It's opportunity. It's the opportunity what it is. You know, if you miss both attacks, well, at least you had that chance. You had that opportunity to make a second one. Rogues never get that chance, unless you do some, you know, multi-classing shenanigans. And I'm not getting into all of that. Multi-classing doesn't exist for the sake of this tier list. But, I mean, what rogues are good at, they're good at, you know. They're real good at stealth. They can, you know, they've got out-of-combat abilities that are interesting. Maybe not social ones, but, you know, they let you break into places, which is certainly nice. They'll have their skills. You know, they got that expertise, which is really good. It gives them one thing that they are incredibly good at doing. But also, bards also get expertise, because bards can do everything. Shout out to them. Salute. But I've played 1 rogue. He was fun. I enjoyed him. But it was very much he's fun because he's a change of pace, not you know, whatever. Now, good news and bad news up next, fellas. We do have the last class that we got Sorcerer. And I don't have a ton to say about Sorcerer, because I've only played 1, maybe 2 of them. But trust me, I'll have a lot to say about these 2. Sorcerer I'm also going to put in C tier, but I'm going to put him right above Rogue. Now, the main thing with Sorcerer for me is, it's not that they're bad or uninteresting. The main problem with Sorcerer is that they just are outclassed by the next 2 classes. I don't ever have a reason why I would want to play a Sorcerer over a Warlock or a Wizard. And that's just me. That's just me personally. If I want to play like an Arcane Spellcaster, I am never picking Sorcerer over those 2. And that's not Sorcerer's fault, you know, they can't help it. I just really like those other two classes, and they kind of make Sorcerer redundant for my purposes. Now, don't walk away from this video thinking Sorcerers suck. They aren't. They're great. They're phenomenal. They're arcane spellcasters. They have access to, not the exact same spell list, but a very similar one to the Wizard, which is a very huge, very diverse spell list. And, you know, depending on their subclass, they get access to different spells, potentially, which only expands them and makes them more versatile. And listen, anytime you have a full caster, they're going to be good, they're going to be useful, and Sorcerer's no different. And meta magic is fucking amazing, man. There's some crazy shenanigans you can do with meta magic. And it's a cool system. The sorcery point system is interesting. I like the other two classes more. I'm sorry, but it has to be this way, Sorcerer. Now up next, we got my third most played class, Warlock. God, I love Warlocks. Warlocks, there are two things that Warlocks do that make me love them so much. Two, or maybe three. First of all, the big one, Eldritch Invocations. Eldritch Invocations make Warlocks the most versatile, customizable class in the entire game, bar none. Eldritch Invocations are these little abilities you can take, that Warlocks have access to, and you can just take them, and they give you extra things you can do. Now, see, Warlocks, they're not full casters. They're weird. They have pact magic. It's very weird. They, like, levels 1 through, like, 9, I think, they only have 2 spell slots, or I guess levels 2 through 9. They only have 2 spell slots, and they can only cast their spells at their highest level. So every spell they cast, you know, it's a lot more important. They're casting bigger spells, but, you know, they only got those 2 spells. But it's made up for the fact that anytime they take a short rest, that's only an hour, unless you're playing with, like, hardcore rules, where a short rest is 8 hours and a long rest is a week, which is crazy. They get their spells back, so, you know, they don't have to worry about, you know, having to conserve their spells throughout the day. They can kind of afford to go Nova a little bit, because all they need is an hour. You know, all I'm asking for is 1 hour. Can you give me that? Can you give me 1 more hour? Eldritch Invocations, they, you know, they'll do things, well, they'll make up for their lack of spells by giving them just at-will access to shit like Detect Magic, you know, Comprehend Languages, Speak with Animals, you know, small stuff like that when you're starting out. But, you know, as it goes on, it stops becoming, you can guess this spell, but it just becomes cool new abilities, that I'll get into some of them later. I'll get into with the second thing. Warlocks are in a very similar class as fighters for me, in the aspect that there is a single particular subclass that elevates this class to a whole new level for me, and that is fucking Hexblade, baby. God damn, I fucking love Hexblades. You know, no, we gotta do that. We have to do that purely for the fact that I think Hexblade, the subclass of Hexblade, is on par with Paladins for me out of my enjoyment. And basically, a Hexblade is just kind of like an evil, fucked up paladin in a lot of ways. It's more spellcaster than combatant. They're a little bit squishier. You know, you don't get heavy armor. You do get medium armor, which is nice, and shields. But you don't get heavy armor. You only have a D8 instead of a D10 hit dice, so you're a little bit more squishy. But you can get access to basically a Divine Smite through Eldritch Smite, which is kind of Divine Smite, but better, really. Well, they do two different. They both have their own things going for them. Eldritch Smite's going to be more useful in more scenarios. Only slightly more useful, though. You know, it lets you play. It lets you do the fun, good old time of, you know, running up, hitting something with a sword, and dealing a guerrilla damage. And, you know, like I said, I like killing things. I like dealing lots of damage. I will be satisfied with a combat encounter if I knew I did so much damage. You know, like I love being able to outpace the rest of the party and how much damage I am dealing in combat. And Hexblades can deal so much fucking damage, man. Hexblade's Curse. I love Hexblades. I love Hexblades so much. Oh my god, I could talk about them forever. But Eldritch Invocations, they let you customize the class so much. Oh, I'll say this about Hexblades real quick. They're also, once again, they let me fulfill my dream fantasy of, you know, being a dude with a sword who can also cast spells. And, you know, they're better spellcasters than Eldritch Knights, but a little bit worse combatants than fighters. But it's also like, in my opinion, the increase they get to magic is much more substantial than the slight decrease they get in, like, martial prowess. I love Hexblade so much, man. That's the other thing, you know. That's always the bit with good old Peyton over here. You know, it's like, oh, new campaign. He's playing a paladin or he's playing a Hexblade, and he's playing a human or he's playing a tiefling. Shout out to me, I guess. But Eldritch Invocations, they allow you. No two warlocks will ever be the same. You know, it allows two people to play the same class, but they will be wildly different and have very different abilities, and I love that so much. It's incredible. And I guess the third thing is that, you know, just by nature of the warlock class, you know, you made a pact with a much more powerful magical being. And that just gives, you know, a nice little element to the plot of, like, okay, well, now we gotta deal with the warlock, like, you know, what's going on with the warlock's patron? Are they a fiend? Well, this is clearly something we're gonna have to deal with, you know, like Will from Baldur's Gate. It's like, we're gonna have to try to get you out of this pact, you know, we gotta get you out of this, bro. On God, we gonna get you some. Or, you know, maybe it's one of those things where it's like their patron is clearly, they've got their own interests, but they don't tell the party what they're doing, and maybe they're not even, like, all that malevolent or opposed to what the party does. I don't know. Warlocks having that patron, it's kind of like having, like, not quite a god in the same way a paladin or a cleric might have a god introduced into the story, but something, you know, still very powerful, but not so far out of reach of the player, such as a god, to where, you know, it just adds this interesting element to the plot, to the narrative, and I love that. It's great. I think that's really all I have to say about warlocks. And up next we got wizards. They're wizards, man. I don't need to explain this. Anyone who knows me knows I'm fucking wizard pilled. I'm Arcana maxing, bro. Wizards are sick. Wizards are awesome. You know? The hierarchy of things I like doing in fantasy worlds. I like playing a dude with a big old sword who shoots magic. Or I like playing a big old dude who can heal his friends with magic. Or I like just playing a big old dude with a big old sword. Or I like playing a fucking wizard. And, you know, look at that. That's the four things we got up here. I love wizards. Wizards are great. They're spellcasters. They have the largest, I believe they do at least. I believe wizards have the largest spell list out of the entire game. So, right off the bat, you have the most options. Now, granted, they're a little less versatile. They're not like clerics or druids where they can change their spells every long rest. You know, once they learn new spells, it's a bit more of an ordeal for them. But theoretically, you know, wizards will have a lot more spells at the ready than clerics or druids ever will. It takes a lot of money and resources, but they can do it. You know, but you're getting all the benefits of being a full caster. You have all the combat focus spells that are really useful. You have all of the exploration and social based spells that are really useful. Intelligence is kind of a lame stat to be your focus because wizards, well, artificers, they aren't on the tier list, but I've also never played artificer. I have nothing to say about them. They're the only ones who are like intelligence based. You know, so that's not really, and like intelligence is like a skill that, you know, we can kind of just go through an entire campaign and never really need it once. Which I think that is what knocks it right below fighter for me. Oh, is it below fighter? I think so. Oh man, I don't know. No, I think I have to put it above fighter. I think I do. I've played more fighters. I played a lot more fighters, actually, but I think I like wizards more. Wizards are great. Wizards are awesome. I mean, wizards allow me to fulfill my fantasy of just being wizard-pilled. I mean, shit, the first wizard I ever played was just an exaggerated version of myself. Shout out to him. That's one of my favorite characters I've ever played. He was a lot of fun. That campaign was a lot of fun. Once again, shout out Dare Bear. Dare Bear, if you've gotten it this far, I love you, but you already know that, Pookie. Wizards are great. I mean, really, the big thing that Wizard does is it just makes Sorcerer obsolete. Because I'm never going to want to play a Sorcerer over a Wizard. I would rather play my smart, old, bearded man with his big old, you know, star-studded, you know, hat and robes. Who's just a smart, goofy old man than, like, you know, my fucking sorcerer who is just gifted, who just blessed by birth with magic. They're just more interesting to me. I love wizards, man. I love wizards. Anyone who knows me, I don't need to explain this. You know how I feel about wizards. But that's the tier list. Slightly shorter than the other two, but it's still really fucking long. Maybe these things are just destined to always be an hour long. It's your hour long yap session from Uncle Peyton. But anyways, that's the tier list. This all looks pretty good to me. I'll see y'all next week for the next Tier List Thursday.